Hello everyone, happy eclipse season. And I know it's been a while since I did a collective reading for everyone, but I just felt like this is another good opportunity for us to check in on what is really going on with the collective energy because it feels like there are a lot of us here who are quite confused on what is really happening with them. There's a sense of confusion or skepticism because it seems like every one of us are in the void. So when I first picked up the cards, the first thing that came through is the Queen of Wands in reverse. And this one is telling me that we may have a lot of passion and drive on certain aspects in our reality. And probably because it's the Leo season, we feel just called to be loud and proud and just do something that inspires us, give us a sense of pride. And there's really nothing wrong with pride because, in a way, it's a form of healthy sense of identity. But from what I'm hearing, it feels like there is a certain Ten of Cups energy wherein it doesn't feel like you know that you have that in you, but it doesn't feel like externally it's showing up. Like there is a bit of sadness or like unmet goals, and it's a bit frustrating for us to have that certain part of us holding on to this kind of emotions when in fact we had been doing a lot of manifestations throughout this season. And I know that there's been a lot of us who also had their own form of manifesting throughout the portal, the aided portal, and leading towards this day. It feels like you just don't know what's really happening internally and externally. But from what I'm getting here, with the King of Swords in reverse and the Nine of Cups upright, it feels like there needs to be a sense of acknowledging that there is a side of us that feels like in a King of Swords energy. The King of Swords, if it's in reverse, it feels like it has a sense of domineering or manipulative tendencies wherein we feel like we need to have a sense of control with whatever is happening to an extent where it no longer feels healthy. And the Nine of Cups here is telling us that it may not seem exactly as how we manifested it or how we are expecting things to go through, but if you hold on to the Nine of Cups energy of so much vitality and positivity, and just knowing that you have so much of this abundance and this sense of fulfillment within you, that you know that it's going to be yours, even though it feels like the external reality is not reflecting that. We are really being encouraged right now to hold on to whatever we held throughout the manifestations that we had during this eclipse season. Because remember, The eclipse season is not just for manifestations, but rather it is actually a cosmic reset and recalibration for us. Because this is a good opportunity for us to come back to home, to know our own foundations, to dive deeper in our roots, in our sense of who we truly are. Because many of us here have already been doing a lot of leaps, like taking a lot of leap of faith, and you've been just continually growing out of identities that no longer align. And since you've been doing a lot of purging, a lot of like shift in just transitions in your day-to-day reality, it just came to a point that when will it ever end? Because what we don't see is there's been a lot of things that we had to remove ourselves from with the building blocks in reverse. It feels like there has been things that we had, that we built our foundations of who we are before, that no longer aligns to where we're heading. And I just feel like you have to accept that not everything will go according to how you should expect it to be. Like, not everything is going to be by the book. Even though you've learned so much about all of this, like healing, like Dark Night of the Souls, like you've gone through so many of this, you are just actually being called to have peace and just to have faith that even though it is not how you're expecting it to be, it's actually going to be fine. And for many of you here, this eclipse season is very, very significant for you. Probably you have a Leo in your main signs, and it's probably like very significant. Could be that you just had your birthday and you wanted to make it extra special, like you wanted to be a new you, but it feels like you just don't know why it's so difficult to be a new you, because there's a lot of shadows or things that were already healed from that came through. But remember, given that we are multidimensional beings, just because we have already healed ourselves from these shadows, from these traumas, from these wounds, it doesn't mean that it's no longer existing. Because given that time is not linear and eclipse seasons are meant for us to like have a complete reset, there's going to be a lot of things that are also going to resurface, because it is an opportunity for us to re-experience these things, for us to know whether or not we have finally readied ourselves into this new identity that we are building. So if you feel like you are being tested right now, like there's a lot of things that are resurfacing that you just don't understand, just remember that they are coming back for you to check in and see for yourself if there are certain aspects of these situations or these relationships or these dynamics that you are not seeing in a different perspective. Like maybe there are still a little bit of lessons that we have to remember on how we were able to solve or move from these certain situations, because through that it's going to really give us a sense of completion. And what do you mean by completion? It means that even though these things come through again, like I I feel like for some of us here, you feel like, oh, I've already overcome my sense of hypervigilance. And how is it that all of a sudden I just feel threatened or feel insecure when certain dynamics come through in this certain way? But maybe what you just don't understand why this came back is because for you to understand that there could still be an aspect of you that you are helping yourself heal. Because even though we are all existing in this linear space, what we are not aware of is that we have also different versions of us. And what you don't know is, given that you've done so many shifts in yourselves and you have a lot of quantum jump experiences, what you didn't know is you could actually be that version of yourself who is capable of healing yourself from this kind of wounds. Because here's something that I've been telling my friends and my clients. If this kind of things come through again, and you know yourself that you have already healed from it, it is also possible that you are very attuned to all aspects of you in time and in space. You could actually be feeling energies of your future selves or your past selves or your parallel reality versions. And maybe you could actually be their higher self. What you don't know is when you tap into these wounds again, maybe you could be that higher self version of you who is able to help transmit these negative or dense energies for that version of you who is still healing that at the moment. So don't worry if these emotions come back from time to time. Instead of perceiving it as yours, observe these emotions, observe these thoughts. Because what you don't know is you could be that higher version or more evolved version of you who is capable of holding space for other versions of you in different realities. Because given this eclipse season, from what I noticed, there has been a lot of time warping. We just don't understand what is happening. It feels like the linear time could just suddenly become too fast and then suddenly it became too short. And then even your dreams, it feels like you know it is you embodying that reality, but you know yourself that you also have another body of yours or your vessel that is still asleep. I don't know if that would make sense to you, but I just I'm just flowing through and it just felt right that someone needs to know about this concept of multidimensionality. Because this eclipse season is not just us, this consciousness, this physical vessel healing, but rather you and many versions of you are simultaneously helping each other heal, help each other shift to different identities that are much more aligned to the reality that they are wanting to live. So, if ever you come back to that, and if you feel like you are looping or like you are just relapsing, remember this season there has been so many timeline shifts. Like, even if you look at the Schumann resonance, there has been so many timeline shifts and so many energetic surge that had happened for the past weeks, and you could really say that the time is non-existent. Like, I don't know. And I also had that same experience to me, so this reading could also apply to me. And this is why I felt guided that collectively there is really a lot of people here who are so attuned to themselves and their multidimensional selves that might need this sort of clarification of what is happening. So with the exchange gifts in this community card, it's just another confirmation for us that we are all just sharing our energy. We're just exchanging our experiences and our energies, our happiness, our sadness towards each other, towards everyone, and even our different versions of ourselves. And remember that with this community card, it is telling us that instead of thinking that you are going through this alone, know that there are also a lot of people at this moment who are also experiencing the same thing, but people are just approaching it in different ways. They cope in different things. Some would probably prefer to just keep themselves more active or busy. Other people are just more active in their dream space, working with different versions of themselves, healing themselves in different realities, and other people are just more attuned to meditating and just coming back to this present reality. So, given that we are all in this space, you don't really need to worry too much. Maybe you are just being called with this fearful ones that instead of looking far ahead in the future, try to just come back in the now. Try to just be okay with being in this point of reality where you are just being immersed with who you really are right now. Yes, we have a lot of plans. Yes, we have a lot of things that we manifested during this season. And there's a lot of things that we want to move away from. But maybe what we really need right now with this justice upright is just us rebalancing ourselves, checking in with our shadows, and just loving ourselves, giving unconditional love to ourselves at the moment, because we are not just healing this vessel, this consciousness, but it is actually us helping different versions of us at the moment. So I'm just going to pull one last advice card for us. I don't feel like this needs to be too long. I just felt like whoever is watching this who just randomly woke up confused, or probably someone who just can't sleep because they're just overthinking. Maybe we just need to understand it in this kind of perspective. So, the advice card that we have here is Elohim. Karmic debts are paid. So, release yourself from the pain of guilt. Your debts are paid. Who you were in the past is not who you are today. If you had known then what you know now, you would have made different choices. But you cannot change what has happened. You can only change how you move forward. Release yourself from the past. So I take responsibility from my own karma. I think it's very relevant to our reading because remember, even though there are certain things that happen in this kind of season, it's not just us reliving it, but rather just acknowledging that we have already gone through it. So you don't need to worry too much and just remember, just be happy, give yourself so much unconditional love throughout this season, and know that as you continue staying in the present, you are actually allowing yourself to receive so much more after this. So I guess that's it. Bye, enjoy, and happy eclipse!